All right. Well, welcome everybody. I know we have more people joining that'll be just a few minutes late, so our numbers may grow here, but I want to honor those of you that were able to join on time and get this started because I know we have a lot of really great content today. I'm representing Beacon Development, a consulting firm in Malibu, California that does organization development, mainly working with organizations in tech and marketing and entertainment. And we work with, I like to say teams 500 and smaller because I really love startup culture and I love helping companies grow that are smaller, but we have definitely grown in working with some bigger companies like Delta and publicly traded companies this year. So I can no longer say 500 and smaller. But with that growth, our intentions remain the same. We really love working with the individual to help them grow. We have a platform that is for the team. So if you're a manager of a team, we're helping with management training, sometimes conflict resolution and team integration. And then we're also working with organizations at a higher level when we work with the CEO and roll programs out for the entire organization. Lori's going to talk a little bit more about Heffelfinger Company too, which I'm excited to hear about. Before I intro her, I do just want to let you know why we do these. So with that context for Beacon Development and our care for the individual, the team, and the organization, I was finding that a lot of this work that we do is only within organizations that can pay for it. So our team was brainstorming, how can we open up opportunities to bring in these top level people to do what companies are paying them to do, or at least give us a glimpse of their conversations, their ideas, what they're reading, how they're presenting it for free. So how can we make it accessible for anybody at any level of a company? So even if you're an individual contributor who wants to be CEO someday, or in an engineering or medical type of position where it's not where you get to be more of a lone wolf, maybe, I don't know, like we really want to open up this opportunity. So I've asked people in my network to come and just share about what they're doing in the world, how they're talking about it, and some of the tools. And so I'm especially excited about this tool today. It's an honor to have Lori Heffelfinger here. She has been not only a force in the organization development community and this discipline that I've just learned about in the last couple of years, but she was also what's called a learning group consultant in my master's degree at Pepperdine University, Grazie a Dio, for the degree of organization development. She's done this many times, which means that she's traveling with us and she's mentoring us on not just learning about OD, but how to put it into practice. And then she has a very successful business of her own. So that was so inspiring to me to watch her be at this expert level with the content and the mastery of herself and how she goes into organizations, but also building it into a business. So we'll have time at the end for questions for Lori about some of this. So I hope that you will hit her up because she is a wealth of knowledge. So Lori, I'm just honored that you're here. You know, I love you and I love this content and I really think it makes a big impact for teams. So thank you.
Well, Malika, I am so excited to be here. How many of you are fans of Malika? Right? I love Malika. Of course, she was a star student, right? So happy to be here. Love the subject of teams. And I'll share just quickly a little bit about myself. I spent many years in large companies, complex companies. And so you can imagine what teaming was like in those organizations. And then went out on my own and started in 2005, started my own business. And of course, then started working with mid-sized companies and large companies. And then also teaching. Let's see. And then I have a master's degree in organizational development and ironically did my thesis on self-directed work teams. So back in the day, self-directed work teams were a big deal. And then companies ripped them out because they couldn't make them work. So isn't that interesting? But let me just, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen quickly here. Okay. All right. What do you see my screen? You see my slides? Yes. Okay. All right. So.
Lori, it is not on the slides though. Can you go back and share the slide tab?
Okay. Sorry about that. I've been doing this so much and I still mess this up. How many years have you done this and still aren't able to do it? That's terrible. Okay, here we go. Okay. So the focus today is really is on.
Okay, there we
Okay.
go, Lori. Yeah, there we go. First slide.
Okay. So the focus today is really on leading teams and strategies that you might be avoiding around teaming. Teaming is not for the faint of heart, and it does take some leadership. So you can't avoid it if you want to lead. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about me, how I got into teaming. So sometimes I think all my skills I learned about teaming and conflict originated in my family of origin. Hi, John. So I am, my father died when I was 7 and my mother remarried when I was 15, and we integrated 2 families and 2 family cultures. And so you can see this big picture here in the middle, everyone looks kind of happy. That was for the picture. Over here, you can see my stepbrother, who looks a little grumpy. So it was, my parents had an amazing marriage. They stayed married till the very end, but they did do a lot of therapy around integrating this family. And, you can imagine integrating a family of teenagers. I was 15, my stepbrother was 17, and my brother was 13. So there was a lot going on. And I kind of became the family mediator. So I learned a lot then. I learned a lot of things that you don't want to do. Also went on to do my thesis, led teams. I've led teams and I facilitated teams. So I would just say I've been a student of teams for many years. As a kid, I even found myself sitting in a lot of adult conversations and just watching group dynamics. So if I'm in a meeting and I'm bored, you can bet that I'm watching the group dynamics. So that's a little bit about me. Love to hear about you. So if you'd put in chat, are you currently leading a team of people? Yes or no? And if so, how many of them are direct reports? Or even direct reports, but people that you're responsible for. So what do we got in chat? 4 directs. Okay, perfect. Long Beach. 9. Woo, nope. Okay, well, lucky you. Maybe. Total of 3 to 5. Okay. No direct reports. Oh, that's tricky. Okay. Yeah, some people believe you have to have direct reports in order to influence. Total team of 50. Wonder how that works. 2 direct reports.
Marianne said she has 4 direct reports, but the total team is 50.
Oh, okay. All right. 3, my wild kids. Yep, that's, there's a lot of analogy between parenting and leading. I think some of the best leaders are parents, frankly. Okay, good. All right, anyone else?
You saw Carolyn's 5 direct reports, total team of 44. Okay.
Well, what we're going to be focusing on here is really, we're starting with what I'm calling an intact team. And those would be the people who directly report to you. And so there's a lot out there around teaming and team skills, and we could spend a lot of time on that. But what I really want to focus in on is the intact team, those who you directly supervise and are trying to create a team, a leadership team, or a team that has a common purpose. So intact teams are 3 to 12. And there used to be some research out there that it was difficult to make decisions in groups larger than 8. So again, this is why it's become super important if you're trying to build a team and teaming behavior using some of the tools that I'm going to suggest. It's important that you're starting with a small number. Not that you can't be collaborative and teaming with larger numbers, but I think if you focus first on the intact team. There are other teams like task teams, project teams, councils, teams that come together for a short period of time. But what I'm really focused on is the intact team. Okay. So I'm just love to hear from you again. Let's answer the first question first, put in chat. What do you see as obstacles to creating ownership in the teams you're leading? No obstacles? Remote working, yes. Trust, accountability, and communication. Team members' confidence. Say more about that, Christina. What do you mean by big egos? Yeah. Team member confidence. What do you mean by team members' confidence?
Their own ability to feel like they can have ownership for some of them, where I know that they can't do it, but their belief in themselves, I feel like, is ripe to grow.
Perfect. Okay. Empowerment, decision-making, communication. Okay. Remote working. Okay. Perfect. All right. Lack of direction, lack of alignment on goals. Yep. Okay, good. You're hitting up someone else. Company co-founder has final say, can change the decision. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, good. Your stuff is playing right into what I'm going to share. What about you then? So you all are also members of teams, most likely. What obstacles do you see to you being committed and accountable in the teams that you're working in? Same as above. Awareness of, okay, yeah. Awareness of the plan, strategy, and sponsorship. Yeah, trying to figure out what's the direction. Perfect. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Hi, Julie.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, just in time. We're just hearing what are obstacles to creating ownership and what are obstacles to you being committed. So folks are talking in chat.
Thanks.
So I'm going to share what I see as the right ingredients for teaming. And that is, it's really about having the right people. So making time to select the right people for your team, having the right behaviors, and then of course, having structures and processes. And all of you have sort of more or less spoken, well, maybe you didn't talk about people, but I think you've spoken a little bit about some of these, or at least you've alluded to these. And then inside, teams also exist inside a context. So the person who shared about the founder, you're all inside a context or a culture, and that also impacts your ability to team. And so we'll get into that a little bit more later. But this is my thinking around the right ingredients. So we're going to start with people. So I pulled up some quotes that I thought illustrated the point, and I'll just let you read them. I mean, I think the key is it's about having good people and people who are good together. So you can have talent, people who are talented for their role or their job, but they may not be talented as a member of the team. And so I think that the question often is as a leader, are you willing to make those hard choices around getting the right people on the team who are going to help you drive to success? And they say it only takes one bad person. Honestly, I can't tell you the number of clients and colleagues who have one bad person on the team, and it's really, really impacting the whole team. So this cannot be overemphasized. And I do see leaders putting up with a lot to accommodate one person who may be super talented in their field, but just aren't a team player. So I have a question for you. Do you have the right people on your team? And so we're going to share a poll in a minute, but the answers, yes. So the answers are yes, every single team member is pulling their weight. Maybe No, you have one or more team members who are important but aren't team players, or no, you have nobody who's pulling people who are, you have one person who isn't pulling their weight and they're also disruptive or something else. Whoa, okay. We've got the polls are coming in. Let us know what you think we should call it, Malika. It looks like we've got 14 out of 18. Okay, should we? All right, do you want to show it?
Yep. Sorry. Let me end that poll for everyone who's been a part of it and share results. Can you see that? Did it share? Okay, good.
So, love to hear from the team that has every single person pulling their weight. That's amazing. Is that because you selected all the right people? Who wants to share there? Anyone? I think that's spectacular. And then it looks like it's evenly, you've got folks, 36% know we have one or more who are important in their roles, but not team players, and most likely never will be. So those of you, and you've got one who is people who aren't playing, who aren't, yeah. So essentially we have 36 and 21. What is that? That's 47% lack of teaming, probably. So what do you think? What's in the way maybe of having the right people on a team? Any thoughts? Put in chat. Or any questions?
All right. Carlos put the corporate culture invests in sharing good team practices.
Oh, great. So they invest, or they also do some training around that?
Yeah. And if you, to the people here, if you want to chime in, you could bring your voice into the room, or you could put it in chat, either one. So whatever makes you feel more comfortable. But Nico put dealing with prior hired employees. Sometimes people have been there for a long time from Barbara.
So that gets in the way of teaming? Yeah, okay. Okay. 1 plus, yeah. Yeah. Same, yeah. Yeah, it's a toughie. I think you have to assess, do you have the right players to do the roles and the teaming behaviors? Can they be developed? You need to give them a certain amount of time to develop. And if not, it's a tough choice. But if you really want a high performing team, there is something about having the right people. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Any questions? You can put questions throughout in chat, and we'll do Q&A at the end as well. So feel free. We will be we're gearing the presentation to those of you here. Okay, so having the right people is the first ingredient. The second ingredient is really having the right behaviors. And this does take development and time and focus. So having the right behaviors, this is Patrick Lencioni's model, which I love. And so it essentially starts with trust. So you have to build, it's a foundation. And without trust, you really can't do anything else. So it starts with trust. You have to build a trust. And trust could simply be getting to know each other. So especially when we've been so remote, getting people in a room together, spending time together. I just recently did a board meeting for a professional association that I lead, and people loved being together. Even though we know each other, people love being together. So it takes time to build trust. Trust also means being vulnerable. So you have to admit mistakes, you have to ask for help. So once you have trust, then you can engage in conflict. And this is really healthy conflict. So being able to debate before you can commit. And, honestly, this takes a lot of work as well. Many of us are afraid of conflict, or we're overly aggressive. So working with the team to help them develop trust behaviors and conflict behaviors is super important. And that then leads to commitment. And commitment is the ability to leave a meeting with everyone in lock sync around what you're going to do and who's going to do it. And it means that even if you disagreed with the decision, you can live with it and you're going to move forward on it. So I think this requires time. It also requires some practices that we'll talk about later under structure. And then once you get to commitment, it's really having all of these things, you're able to move to accountability. And accountability has to do with, this is mutual accountability. So this means that you all are accountable to the task at hand and to each other, and you're comfortable enough to call each other out. So it's not just the leader calling people out, it's that you're able to call each other out. We see very few teams, frankly, that get to this level. So the highest performing teams are able to get to this level. But unless you invest the time up here, you're going to have a really hard time getting to accountability. And then, okay, so having the ability to hold each other accountable then leads to mutual results, or a focus on collective results. So especially with leadership teams where everyone's kind of running their own area, it's they don't always see the need to focus on collective results. So leadership teams or teams you're leading, really, you need to have some sort of collective result that you're focusing on. Okay. So how many of you are familiar with Patrick Lencioni's model? You've seen this before? Yeah. Love this model. Yes, agree. Training is part of the investment, but the daily support to the team, the most. Yes, absolutely. You need to be doing this continuously. You want to say a little bit more about that, Carlos? Daily support.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Our practice is based on a daily basis communication process amongst all the team, because we have different teams working in different clients, and the managers have to support the teams every day. So that's why we have different tools to communicate amongst ourselves, such as Teams, WhatsApp. We have different WhatsApp groups for an easy communication amongst ourselves. So every day we know exactly what is the atmosphere in the different teams. So this is the way we know exactly if someone is sad, if someone is not motivated, if someone is ill, if someone is on vacation. So we know exactly what's going on. But to do this, we have to practice on a daily basis. And this is the most important tool we have, apart from some specific training that we give to improve the communication and to be more accountable and to get the final goal of the company, which is provide a professional services to our clients.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I think that, so it sounds like you're spending a lot of time individually focusing on trust. And I think that that's also super important. So trust, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about psychological safety. What is it and what is it not? And so sometimes I feel like we've almost overemphasized psychological safety, but it's really based on the willingness of people to be vulnerable and human with each other. And this can't be underestimated. It's like we have to be able to show up and say what's going on for us. I love, Carlos, that you're spending time trying to get the pulse of where people are. That's important, getting the pulse of where people are, but people also being willing to share where they are. I'm not having a good day. I need a mental health day or whatever it is. So that's super important. I need help. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I can't get this done.
Exactly, Lori. And may I give you some more comments on these? With this kind of approach we have, the people feel comfortable to raise any difficulties, any problems that they are facing, even in their personal life. Yeah. And also at the end of the week on Friday, it's the last hour we have in our day. We have a remote meeting with all the team together, just to have a chat, to share some jokes, or just to know how we are doing. Because as I said, we have different people working in different places. Some of them are working from home, others are in our clients' offices. So at least one day per week, at the end of the week, we are all together chatting and joking and say hello to everyone. And this is the way we do.
Yeah, super important. So you're doing a lot to build trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is right, which is the basis. And it's once you have trust, you're able to create psychological safety, then people can then move into conflict. So Amy Edmondson defines psychological safety as a felt permission for candor. Like it's okay to be me with you. You might have a different political affiliation, you might have a different religious belief, but you're still going to be okay with me sharing my perspective. So you have to risk to trust and to be trusted. And when trust is built, safety is created. And it's not about being nice all the time. Patrick calls that artificial harmony. And it's not always about feeling comfortable. So those of you who are married and have a decent marriage, you know that it requires a lot of work, right? So it's the same with the team. It's the question is, do you care enough about the people that are on your team to be willing to risk and share and make it safe for other people as well? And safe isn't always about being nice. It's about being accepting. So we're going to put you in a breakout and have you go further on this. So first of all, think about individually, spend a minute thinking about your team and where they're strongest and weakest on the pyramid: trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. And remember, accountability and results have to do with mutual accountability. And then what are you doing or not doing? What you personally as a leader, what are you doing that is helping or hindering team success? Because we're a big part of it. And where do you or your team need to focus more? So think about that individually, and then you can do one of two things. You can each share your own answers, or you can take one person's scenario and get some coaching. So we're going to give you 8 minutes, so about 2 minutes each.
And I'll put that in the chat, but go ahead and take a minute and screenshot that or take a quick photo just so you've got those prompts. Everybody got that? All right, I'm going to do breakout rooms first, and then I will put you, I'll put that in the chat if you need it.
Thanks, Malika.
Mhm. All right, here you go. If you end up in a room without people to talk to, come back to us. All right, let me see if I can drop that in the chat. Everyone.
Good.
Where'd my screenshot go? Oh, there.
James, you're with, okay, good. You're with Julie. Perfect. Oh, he was.
That's the poll.
Okay, it looks like James is, I'm going to move some folks. James is in a room by himself. Somebody's not joined.
Mm.
Oh, I know. I see people have dropped off. That's why.
It's funny, you can't put a screenshot in the, oh, yes, you can. There we go. It wasn't taking. Okay, thanks for looking at that. Is there anyone else? Let me just see. Is there anyone else we need to reassign other than James? Oh, you got him in room 4.
Mr. James has BST James is not moved.
Okay, great. All right, everybody looks good then. We've got 3 solid breakout rooms. Okay, good. How you feeling, Laurie?
Okay.
Okay, good. Let me put
This person here is not joined.
them in the waiting room.
Okay, there he goes. Oh, you put him in the waiting room?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we, do you continue to record or do you stop?
Oh, thank you. I often mean to stop recording.
Oh, good for you. You're so good at good for you. How'd you figure out how to do that?
The recording? I just forget. That's what I'm saying.
No, I mean the screenshot. That's impressive.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I use Shift Command 4 all day long. Is that in your tool? Shift Command 4 whenever I see anything I need, because people are clipping through and I'm like, I want to think more about that, or that's a thought that won't stay in my head today. So I just screenshot things. And then at the end of the day, I have to clean up my desktop and be like, was it a prompt to do something or am I keeping it? So.
Well, I don't know. How do you think it's going? It's always hard to know who's in the group and when people don't put their screens, cameras on.
I know. I do think that's a really weird, like, new culture thing for stuff like this, where people just want to listen in like it's a podcast. So it is really hard to decide, like, how interactive can you make it? And for Eventbrites, the answer is it's up to you. Like, no one's paying for this. They don't have expectations necessarily. You want it to be good, but good can mean so many different things. So for me, it feels like a playground. I was not willing to do breakout rooms early on because I thought, oh, people won't engage. But then I found out the people who wanted to engage do. So people who don't just stay on mute or, don't engage or say like, oh, I'm driving. Sorry, I won't have my camera on. It's fine with me.
Yeah.
I've gotten used to it. But if I'm working with a client, no way. Like, put everything away.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating that so Erwin is must have come through my LinkedIn. I know Erwin. He's kind of an intellectual. So he's always interested in topics. But Julie, she's like a master at teaming. So it's fascinating that she's joining.
That is interesting.
It's kind of, I think she may have dropped off for the breakout. I guess it's it's you can always learn something because it's never ending.
I forgot to set my timer. So what do you think we're at right now?
Oh, I thought, did you not set it in the breakouts?
No, I always just give them, I didn't even know you could. I just usually give them a 1 minute before the time.
Yes, you can. You can actually set it up so it's automatic.
Yeah.
I would say they've been in a couple minutes.
Okay. I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes then.
Okay. I love working with a fellow I.
When James was asking all those questions, I was like, don't roll your eyes. Don't roll your eyes. It's so valuable and it's not how my brain, I'm like, I don't know, James, we'll figure it out as we go, right? And he's like, nope, figure it out now, please. Like, you're right. It'll all be more organized because you're here, but it's definitely, I'm like, who's setting the timer? Who's doing the breakout rooms? Oh, me. Sorry, I've already forgotten what I was supposed to do. Oh,
Julie has an issue of the right people on on her leadership team. I think almost every client I have is having issue with their CFO.
really?
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Why the CFO in particular, do you think? Why is that position challenging?
I think they're under so much, they may not have people skills, one, but they're totally under the gun for, if they're publicly traded, for financial results. There's a lot of fiduciary responsibility there. And then I think the CEO relies on them. So I think they get big egos.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm doing the 360s for an executive team. And the chief people officer said, I worry that sometimes the 360 can do more damage than it
Oh,
could. And I can see that now. She's like, what if this rocks their confidence? Like, what if we were doing so well and now we did a 360 and it's hard? But the CFO there is the best CFO I've ever worked with. Everyone loves him. He's so nice, people skills to the max, experienced, friendly, just like the total package. But the things that he got back were like, be more decisive, don't be wishy-washy, handle conflict. And it's like, man, if you had a CFO like what you are describing, Lori, they would just be like, just do whatever you're doing. No changes. We don't need, I don't know. You always ask for what you don't have. And I do wonder about the impact that will have on them. So
yeah, it's either one or the other. Yeah, it's either one or the other.
and we ask for feedback. That's the point. You get feedback. But I was thinking about that last night. Like, I want them to have more confidence, not less confidence. I want them to be more decisive and more fully and authentically themselves, not less.
The
So
thing I usually tell them is, yeah, 360 feedback is really hard. I tell them that this is feedback about the people you work with and what they expect of you. And you don't have to do it all. You can say, no, I'm not going to, or no, you don't understand. I mean, it's just a window into what people think and what people expect that may or may not be reasonable.
yeah, that's good. Because it's not reasonable. The expectations on executives now don't feel reasonable.
They don't. No. No, I hope this isn't boring. I always worry about that. I don't know that I'm a great speaker.
What? Well, you are. And
I'm a good facilitator.
you're an amazing facilitator. I'm not a great speaker.
I think you're great.
I'm working on it, but I have my things. It's hard to stop doing the things that are junior, like the looking around or, just like funny things you do that you're like, when you see somebody who's really good at it, you're like, wow, they're really good. I'm not at that level yet. So, yeah. All right. We're at 4 minutes right now.
Oh, 4 minutes left.
I think we'll call him back in 1 minute because we'd already done a couple minutes, right? So I'm going to.
We did, well, 10:37. So that would be, I mean, it'd take a while for people to share all this stuff, assuming they're willing to play.
Yeah, no, that's true. I wish we could communicate with the rooms.
You can communicate with the rooms. You could go into a room. You could literally go put yourself in a room and see how people are doing.
Okay.
So you just go to breakouts and just go join a room and see how they're doing.
Okay. Cool. I will do that. I'm going to join room 1. Are you going to hang out here?
I can. Should I go join too?
Yeah. Why don't you do 1 and I'll do 3. And if you get out earlier, whoever's out earlier can check on 4.
Okay. All right.
I'm hopping in 3.
Hey there. Malika? Okay. People. You have to have the right people. You have to have the right behaviors, and you don't get, the thing is we don't come by teaming behaviors. I think,
Lori, really quick, it went back to that email and not the PowerPoint.
oh, okay, there we go again. Sorry. Okay. When I do the presentation, it takes over my screen in weird ways. Okay, now do you see it?
Yep, got it.
Okay,
You,
so
you
again,
just FYI, you might want to, when you guys save the recording, to go back in at this time and maybe delete out that little section if there's anything sensitive in your email that you showed.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Sure. No problem.
So again, focus on that. You got to take the time to create team behavior. Back in the day, we used to call it task and process or task and relationship. You have to focus on the relationship. But if you're only focusing on relationship and you have no task or structure, then you might not get anything done. So the third ingredient is structure and process. And this is also often overlooked because of all these boring meetings, this angst that people have in meetings. They don't want to add structure to what they're doing, and or they over mechanize it as a way of overcompensating for behavior, I think. So many of you talked about this early at the beginning of the meeting. So your team needs to have a direction. And this isn't just the business direction. This is the direction of your team. Why does your team exist? What is the purpose of your team? And maybe the purpose is to grow the business together, or maybe it's to lead a healthy organization. But you as a team need to have a purpose, and you need to have a vision around what do you want this team to be? Is it a consciously led? What is your team? What are the values that you're going to operate on? You have to take time to decide. And then what's the focus? So I think what we're seeing in organizations now, and it's probably always been true, is that there's so many goals and there's so many priorities. You really do need to take time to figure out what must this team achieve in the short term. You may have a long-term vision, a long-term goal, but what's your short-term priority? What's most important? I worked with a client last year. James and I worked with a client last year, and the CEO had like 20 priorities. And so we did a whole exercise around prioritization. And when we did interviews with the team was all frustrated because there were so many priorities. So we asked each individual team member, what were the priorities? Well, everybody had 20 different priorities. So we attempted to get them together to figure out what were the top few priorities. It was extremely difficult. So the CEO ultimately agreed that they needed to have a few priorities. So this business of priorities is super important. And then once you have the priorities, what is each team member going to do to contribute to that? So super important. Again, all of this takes time.
Sorry to chime in, but when teams are having trouble figuring this out, like you said, it takes a lot of time. Like, have you seen teams successfully do this if they don't have this in place? Because when I'm working with teams, they often get stuck here. Like if we don't go up the pyramid, this is usually where we get stuck.
Totally. I mean, first of all, we typically run them through an exercise that shows that it isn't that easy to agree to priorities and that it's worth doing it. So you have to get them in a meeting going through the exercise of prioritizing, and maybe you start in small groups first and then bring it out. But I think when we put people in breakouts of 3 to 4 people, and even those 4 people couldn't agree on the priority, then we know something's going on, right?
Yeah. Okay. James raised his hand too.
Yeah, I wanted to add that this working on priorities, this is where you get in the pyramid around conflict. And the idea of getting conflict to get the commitment is that there's a good enough conversation, a good enough debate, deep enough debate that people can get very clear, right? You want clarity on each of the priorities. So they're clear on what they're prioritizing. And then once they've got their clarity, then they can buy into that priority. They may totally disagree with that should be the priority, but they can buy into it because they're very clear on what it is and what's expected of the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think when, if you start at the top, if organizations don't have a strategy or a purpose, and this is especially true now, right, where businesses have had to rethink, reorganize, businesses have had to reinvent themselves. And so it's quite likely they don't have a clearly thought out strategy, or just the person at the top has it and hasn't done a good job of articulating it and getting the buy-in. So super important that you take the time to do this. No matter if you're working with clients or if this is you, no matter how much you irritate people, make them do this. Make yourself do this.
Be irritating. That's what I heard you say. Be irritating.
Be irritating. Be irritating. I did this recently with the board that I'm leading. We finally I came in with a short, sweet set of goals and which they didn't agree with necessarily, but they did agree to something that was related. So, so super important. Okay, now, so once you've got these in place, now there's the kind of the glue that holds it all together. And this is going to look crazy. This has to do with meetings. Now, you don't have to do this, but you do have to meet. And so where I first saw this was when I was at Honeywell. I worked with a general manager it was $1 billion business. He had a new team. He got the right people. He created a cadence of meetings that he ran his business through. His business, he had the most integrated team. He had the best financial results, and he knew exactly where his business was at any time. And so you can imagine if his leadership team was that aligned, people down the chain were aligned as well. So it's really a cadence of meetings with clear but different purposes. So I'm currently coaching a client now that has a zillion meetings. And he said to me, maybe I should prep before those meetings. I'm like, yeah, you should. So, right, what's the purpose of the meeting? This is why people don't want to do meetings. So here's an example, and you don't have to do this, but if you have an annual plan, you do your vision, your strategy, you look at see whether you've got the capability to meet that strategy. Then you do quarterly check-ins. How's it going? Status of financials. And you review how you're working together. You really do need to take the time, because you can do a big retreat and work on all these behaviors and figure out how you're working together. But if you don't status it, it's just like a marriage. I mean, James and I've been married. We won't tell you how long we've been married, but we do need to status how we're working together. We really do. I mean, and it's been a long time and we're very well aligned, but we still have issues, right? Monthly status meetings where you update, review. And again, yours may look differently, weekly, bi-weekly. And then what I'm seeing a lot of clients do is it's not just the leader having one-on-ones with their staff, is the peers. So you have a group of 4 to 12 people, they're doing one-on-ones with each other to continue to align. And then of course, ad hoc. So trying not to do too much stuff in one meeting. So you have a meeting, you find out that you have a big issue around supply chain or a big issue around customer service. Well, then you set a separate meeting to talk about that. So the cadence of meetings is the secret sauce. I spent a whole year with a startup client on the East Coast. I spent a year getting them to try and meet. And finally, after a year, two of the principals saw the value in it. And I think their business turned around as a result. And then of course, having a scorecard, some sort of scorecard that looks at where is it you're going and how are you doing against it? Something simple. All right. So Malika, what do you think? Should we go into the next breakout?
You know what? I think we're running out of time for breakouts.
Okay,
What if
okay.
we have 14 in the room now? What if we just do it together and
Okay.
hear the question a little bit?
Okay. Okay. So what have you all seen that works well? Structures and processes. Or what has your team done?
One thing that I think that wasn't mentioned in there, because I think all of that is things that we're doing and are really helpful. So I agree.
Great.
But someone mentioned the struggle of remote work. And so what I do with my team is have a weekly connect that, at least for the first half of it, is very intentionally casual, chatty, the kind of conversations that I imagine we would be having every day if we were in an office together. Bumping in, hey, I see what on the way to the kitchen type of things that we have to be a lot more intentional about. So we have that kind of recurring on the calendar, and I tell my team like, oh, it's kind of like awkward that we have to like schedule this social part, but otherwise it really, really doesn't happen. And then beyond them, that I encourage them to go out and like schedule those like one-off meetings in the same vein of like, maybe you'll just chat about your day and your weekend with somebody else at the company, maybe on this team, maybe on another team, and maybe you'll touch on some work stuff too, but it doesn't have to be that. It's that like remote connection that isn't there, that you have to be a little bit more intentional, that I found helpful.
Love it. Love it.
So in my world, I have meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, but I think we do a really good job of finding out if the meetings needed to be adjusted, if the topics need to be adjusted, if the time needs to be adjusted. So I think we're getting better on, I don't think we'll ever get a, the meetings are very important, at least in my company. We just do a better job of seeing if, was there too much in there, and we're just trying to change the narrative of now the way I see it is like, hey, I get to, hang out for an hour uninterrupted with my colleagues, and see some old friends or see some old people that I worked with, so I'm just trying to, wherever I go, change the narrative about it instead of just saying, hey, there's another meeting and we're going to talk about a million things. And
you're changing your behavior and your narrative, your mindset.
Yeah. And wherever I go, I try to, adjust people. When is adjust the right word? I don't know. Try to give them the same sort of narrative. It's, hey, listen, this meeting didn't go the way we wanted to. Is there a way that we can, take some of the subjects off or just concentrate more on special items? I think we learn from when we bring things up and nobody reacts to it or nothing changes, that we need to adjust to it. We can't continue talking about the same things and nothing gets done then.
That's a combination of behavior and structure. So behavior is you're confronting what you see and you're changing the structure. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Thank you, Christina and Nico. Anyone else?
Right. To Nico's point, we kind of like piggyback off each other all the time, but I think having that discussion with our team members as to, was this productive? Like, what did you gain from it? What would you like to see more of? Do you think the meetings were too long? Do you think that, this meeting should have been a phone call instead? So I think that has been very helpful and productive. Granted, we don't have any team members that work, from home or remotely. So it's really nice to, actually see people in person and get a feel for where they are and kind of, absorb that and just get like, a way forward with them.
And to be fair, Heather and I are like in every meeting together.
Yes, we are.
That's really great. Awesome. Okay. Well, you brought up, thank you for that sharing. That's perfect. So I'm going to start to close, Malika.
Yeah. Do you want to circle back to Stephanie's question before we do?
Okay, sure. Stephanie, is Stephanie still here? Stephanie. Yes, Stephanie, what was your question? Again.
Right. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to open up the discussion to the big group just to see if there were other tactics that anybody used just to regain trust for the larger team during times of disruption. So either a big organization change or some individual teammates that are shifting on or off the team, kind of scenarios like that.
So I can share, but do other people have ideas?
Sure. Really quick. So
Corey.
my internet's been on and off, so I'm considering. Yes. Hi. I've been in a team situation once where leader had left.
Is Corey coming through really garbled for everyone?
She is, yeah.
Sorry,
Oh, bummer.
Corey.
Put it in chat, Corey.
Yeah. Corey's gonna have to use chat. Sorry, the reception's not working.
Anytime I would love for folks to chime in, but anytime you have a disruption, it's when you really need to step in and pay attention and bring people together to acknowledge what's happened. Right? If you had a layoff, to acknowledge, give people an opportunity to vent, to talk about it, to bring teams together and tell them this is the new team. Have people get to know each other. So you need to, especially in this day and age when there's disruption, not addressing it or not talking about it. I think it's harmful. You're shaking your head, Nasheen.
I mean, yes, absolutely. That's the number one thing I would say is, and I think my previous company where I was did a really good job of this, of regularly acknowledging right off the bat, hey, we know that this has happened, hearing it out, making sure that they're acknowledging this is what it is and also why it is this way. And maybe even saying, we know that this might be rubbing some people the wrong way. And just really making sure that people felt heard when necessary, having one-on-one conversations. So in the event of layoffs, for example, talking to the people who were closest to that person, having those open conversations early on. And that's not to say that they always went well and everyone always received it well and went in and left being best of friends with the person having the conversation with them. But the conversation was had, and it was an open and honest one because people are talking to each other. And so anything that is potentially being shoved under the rug isn't really. People are already talking about it. So you might as well, it makes the leadership look clueless to not address that at all, which doesn't do well for trust.
I heard a saying once, 80% of rumors are true. So you might as well just fess up. Other ideas. Did that help, Stephanie? It's probably stuff you already know.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah, we had a few things that we discussed in our group. We just wanted to open it up to the collective since change happens, it's inevitable, and just the ability to maintain a strong working team out of change, I think, is a really big challenge, but a great opportunity for organizations and individuals.
Aaron, you seem to have a thought.
Yeah, so I work in a pretty industrial centric environment, so very continuous improvement sort of oriented approach. I used to work at actually Honeywell, power division and ACS actually. So the thing that I've noticed is that a lot of organizations don't have let's say a true north. That I'm on some boards, and there tends to be sort of a generational friction in the leaders to kind of create that, whatever the system is. I don't think most people care. They just want to know there's some system, so that people can anchor to something, to some consistency and some regularity. And I find that that's kind of a big leading indicator of organizational success and people's success at the same time. That's sort of above. And then at a peer level or, adjacent, it's the degree of commitment to, what the purpose is in the organization versus sort of a lot of the behaviors that people might just orient themselves to, which are more personal and more, sort of around the friction in the organization. And I just, I find that if those two things aren't lined up, there's almost nothing you can do. I mean, to be really honest, I mean, or go get a new job basically, or switch, you know, internal to the department or some other group or whatever, because you're just going to have two sets of malign actors. One you're surrounded with day to day. And then even when you look to get guidance, you know, you don't get it, or you get this sort of, you know, mushy, you know, you guys figure it out, and you know what the purpose is, blah blah. It's like, okay, well, you know, show me the purpose, you know. And,
I think middle managers, especially in large organizations, but you can find them in smaller organizations too, are looking for direction. And the thing I usually say is, if you don't have direction, you got to create your own. So you're a leader of a team and you're not getting direction, and there's a reason why there's no direction coming from the top. We do a whole workshop around that, but there is a reason why there's not direction coming from the top, and it has to do with external complexity. And senior leaders could do a much better job. But if you're at a level of organization where you're not getting the direction, you have to create your own direction. And it might mean that you have to create it and go get buy-in from above, but you have to create some sort of clarity and put a stake in the sand and get your team aligned around it. Because you could wait for years. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes when you go seek direction, you wait for years too. I mean, there becomes these dynamics where you just have, I mean, I think, to be blunt, we've oversaturated middle and senior and executive management in the last decade or so. And we have a lot of forced friction, basically, between all those actors.
The leverage for change in an organization is amongst the middle leaders, right? And so if you can find a way to have your own direction and align with your peers, so that isn't the teaming. We were focused on intact teams, but there's a whole nother form of teaming that is peer teaming, and creating peer relationships and solving problems from a peer level that will drive significant change in an organization. And so, you know, when oftentimes when we're looking at doing leadership development, it's focused at that level in the organization, because that's where the power is. You're leading all the people, you're driving the work. It's significant.
Yeah, Lori, this is so good. And I never think we'll run out of time, and we do. Can you show us the last few slides that you've got, just to make sure that we get the full picture? And then Lori and I can stick on afterward if you have any additional thoughts or questions, or I can. I don't know if Lori can.
I can, absolutely. Okay. So the key to buy-in, 3 ingredients: people, behaviors, and structure or processes, and alignment around those. Creating that's up to you. You're in good company. I always like to get a few stats. It's the whole idea of alignment was number 1 on HBR organizational list of topics. And the problem is so persistent. MIT School Sloan Management has surveyed 4,000 managers. Only 20% can correctly list the firm's top 3 priorities. Hello, that's scary. Okay. I do think there's some limiting beliefs that leaders have around alignment teaming. And that is, my direction's clear and understood, so what's the big deal? Another one is, I've got really talented people and they're adults. They should know how to work together. A third is, it takes too much time. And a fourth might be, it's not measurable, so why should we do it? Yeah. That's what I see. I'm sure you could come up with others. But I'm here to challenge you all as team leaders. It really starts with you. I think that's the wake up call I had, is that with my board, okay, it starts with me. I was getting a lot of feedback. You have to believe it's a priority. You have to see it as a priority. You have to model it. In other words, and you have to be imperfect about it. You have to see yourself as part of the issue and engage, model, lead, and you have to take the time. So there you have it. I think that's it. Oh, and then I do have some resources. We can send these to you if you want. All right, Malika, back to you.
This is great, Lori. I love it. I think, how do you feel about sharing the recording and the slides with people after this call?
I think that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we just made that decision right there in real time. We're going to send you the slide deck and the recording so that if you want to refer back to any of this, you can. Lori, if we want to work with you in the future, how do we reach out to you? If we need your help on this teaming, what does that look like? Just send you an email?
Sure. Send me an email. Send Malika an email. Most likely I'll be collaborating with Malika.
Yes, I love having Lori and others who love this work because it's the work that I love. There's so much to do in organization development, and I hope to bring some other people in who have some really different perspectives on it from me in the future. But it's really easy to bring people in when it's like, yes, this is what I love to do in organizations. This is what looks powerful to me. This is where I like to spend my time. So I will be collaborating with Lori, and I hope that we've given you something just to think about in how you show up for your own teams, how you challenge where the team's at in its own team health, and maybe just gives you a few tools today to assess and say, like, are we a high performing team? Are we accelerating? Are there things that we could be doing to be better? And so the change doesn't really come from facilitators or a science or a practice. It comes from you because you're in the organization, you're doing the work, and you have the relationship. So I hope that you feel like you left with some tools, but the power for this change is in you. And I hope that we inspired you to keep doing that good work. So thank you all for your time today. And I'm going to turn off the recording, but hang out a little bit if you have any other thoughts. And Lori, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Always great to see what people are dealing with, right? And what they've come up with. So I think we had some good ideas too.
Yeah.
From folks.